is Dave with Taboo Customs. Today we've got a 99 TJ in the shop.
All right, so in the transfer case mounting area, skid plate here, this is the frame before. Now we've taken the skid plate off. We've taken a hammer and knocked all the loose stuff we can, and you can see we had several large holes open on the passenger side here. And then also, if we go over to the driver's side, you'll see the same thing. And what we're gonna do now is we'll go and we're gonna cut this bottom section probably about 3/4 to an inch up, cut that whole bottom section out and replace that with our new section. We'll take a look at that in a minute, but first let's go look at the transfer skid plate before we fix that. All right, so here's the transfer case skid plate, and it didn't look nearly this bad when we first were looking at this Jeep in the first video, but you can see as we started to take it down and all the layers started to separate, we developed several large holes, which isn't a problem. We're actually going to reuse this skid plate, but we'll be putting a kit on it that we build as well, and we'll take a look at that in a minute after we take a look at the frame. All right, so here is the rear control arm mounting area, or what was left of it anyway. You can see our center section kit there at the front that we've already done. You can see how we've gone up and cut out pretty much the bottom half of the frame and completely replaced it with that 7-gauge section. Now we'll be moving on to the rear, and here we'll pretty much be doing similar things. We'll be cutting off both of the control arm mounts, replacing both of those completely, and then cutting out the bottom of the frame and completely replacing it with new metal on the outside, inside, and bottom, and then putting on our new control arm mounts. Now, of course, this side here is obviously the worst, but we're going to go ahead and do the passenger side as well. You know, the inside of the passenger side, not nearly as bad. The outside is starting to show some damage, you know, some rust through, so it wouldn't be too long before, you know, this side might start to look like the other side. Okay, so here we are on the passenger side of this Jeep, and I wanted to show this because this is really the problem with TJs and frame rust, is it can be really deceiving. But when we picked this Jeep up, it really didn't look too bad on this side. We had a little hole back here, which I think we've shown a couple of times. But as we took a hammer and we got everything loose, we started trying to knock some of the loose stuff out. You can see as we kind of hammered it and just knocked it loose, that hole that was just back here goes all the way above the top of the lower control arm mount, back here all the way to the front. This here is paper thin, and it keeps going all the way up. And the same thing started to occur on the inside, and we didn't see that before, where you can see on the inside there's a hole from a few inches in front of the lower control arm mount all the way back to the back. So this side really, you know, it was not too far from probably doing the same thing that the driver's side had done as well. All right, so here's the finished rear control arm mount area for the rear axle. New kit installed, lower control arm mount replaced, upper control arm mount replaced. Now it's on to the other side to do that one. All right, so here we are after we've repaired the center section of the frame, and we've also gone in and repaired our transfer case skid plate. So you can see here that we pretty much go from the front bend in the frame here in the center to the rear bend. Now we've still got to add several kits to this Jeep. Up here we'll be adding a kit to the front, because you can see the hole above the lower control arm mount there in the front axle. You can see the hole here in the back as well. And here you can see, you know, we solid welded this whole kit, and we also solid welded our plates underneath on the skid plate. You know, and we do that because when working with these rusty frames, we kind of overkill everything, because you can't guarantee that I can get a good weld every single inch of weld that's there, so it's just best to overkill it. In this kit, we use a 7-gauge in the center. We also use 7-gauge on the transfer case skid plate, just so we can also make sure that the center section of the Jeep is as strong as possible, because we're actually going to be adding kits to the front and to the rear, and we'll be tying those kits into the center. So we always do the center first. Anyway, so that's the center section of the Jeep. Now let's take a look at the rear control arm mounting areas. Okay, well, unfortunately, in my haste to get this Jeep done, I didn't get a video just before we repaired this, so I couldn't show you, but in essence, this area was kind of typical of what we see in extreme frame rust, where there was a hole basically from here back to there. This area usually doesn't rust that bad, and it's somewhat rare. We really only see them in extreme cases where most of the rear part of the frame is already pretty bad and it starts to creep up here to the front. Now, typically, since these aren't necessarily as bad as what we see in the rear, we do a kit that actually lays over, and you can see how much we've tied in that lower control arm mount into the kit above it. And we do basically the same thing if we look at the inside as well, and we still need to clean it all up. It's hard to see because we put the exhaust back in it already, but you can kind of see how we tie it in. And since we already had the center section kit in, we actually tie it in. It overlaps about 4 to 5 inches, and that's somewhat on purpose because I want to make sure that we overlap good material with good material.
So thanks for watching, and as always, if you are looking for some more videos or kits for any of these areas to repair, we've got those kits on taboocustoms.com, and then you can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram if you want to keep up with what we're doing.